I still remember the exact moment my world cracked open like a rotten egg. We'd been planning this wedding for months. My fiancée, Lisa, was the kind of girl who'd smile sweetly and then stab you in the back without blinking. Still, I never thought she'd do something so sick, so gutless. Everything seemed perfect. Her laugh, the way she looked at me with those big green eyes promising forever. I'd never suspected a thing, not really. I thought I knew her. It was late that night when I decided to check on her. She was always edgy about her phone, always hiding it, so I didn't think much of it. But that day, something felt off. I noticed her purse was pulled aside, her phone just sitting there, face up. I'd seen her swipe her finger over the screen 100 times, but that night I caught her with her hand still on it. The screen lit up with a message from Mark. "Can't wait to see you tonight, asterisk." My stomach twisted. Mark was her best friend, literally her childhood buddy. They known each other since elementary school. I'd seen the way they looked at each other sometimes, like they shared some secret language, but I'd always shrugged it off, told myself maybe I was just paranoid. Now, that message was a slap of cold reality. I picked up the phone, my fingers trembling as I read the full conversation. There were more texts, more pictures, her sending him a flirty wink emoji, him replying with a wink back, a little heart. It was all right there, plain as day. I felt my hand tighten around the device, my knuckles white. I could smell the sharp scent of my own sweat, feel my heart pounding against my ribs like it was trying to break free. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself she'd just been drunk, that it was a mistake, that nothing serious had happened. But deep down, I knew better. The evidence was right there, staring me in the face. I sat on the edge of the bed, the phone still in my hand, cold sweat running down my forehead. She was in the living room, probably asleep, unaware I'd uncovered her secret. The worst part was I'd trusted her. I'd always trusted her. We'd been through so much. Her laughter, her tears, the late night talks about building a life together. And now I wondered if that had all been a lie. Maybe I'd never really known her at all. Maybe she'd been lying to me every step of the way. I wanted to wake her up and scream, ask her how long she'd been cheating. But instead I just sat there, my mind racing, trying to process the betrayal. I felt numb, then furious. Every fiber of my body ached with the desire to punish her, to make her feel what I was feeling right now, utter, brutal betrayal. And as I looked at her sleeping there, so innocent in her dreams, I knew I couldn't let this slide. I had to do something. I had to make her see that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. The plan started forming in my mind, fast and fierce. I'd keep her in the dark for now, gather my evidence, and when the time was right, I'd make her regret every single lie. But I didn't know how deep this was going to go. All I knew was this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about what she'd taken from me, what I'd lost in that moment: trust, security, the idea of a future. I clenched my fists, feeling the cold sting of betrayal in my chest, and wondered, how do you rebuild after your whole world turns out to be a lie? I spent the next few days like a ghost in my own life. Every time I caught sight of her, my stomach clenched tight like I'd swallowed a stone. I couldn't look at her the same way. I kept replaying that night, her voice, her laugh, the way she looked at Mark in those texts. How long had this been going on? Did I really not see the signs? I started noticing little things. Her phone always seemed to be glued to her hand, even when she thought I wasn't watching. She'd hide it if I got close, swipe away messages quickly. It was obvious she'd been hiding something, but I kept telling myself I was paranoid. I didn't want to believe she'd do this to me. Still, I couldn't let it go. I needed proof, something more concrete, something that would hit her harder than words ever could. I started digging deeper, going through her stuff when she wasn't around. I found receipts from late-night gas stations, little notes she'd written for Mark, and a pair of her earrings I was sure she'd never wear in public. That's when I started planning my move. One night I found her laptop open in the living room. She'd forgotten to log out of her email. I hesitated, my fingers trembling, but I couldn't resist. I needed to see the truth. I pulled up her inbox, scrolling quickly. It was a mess of flirtatious emails, soft, sweet words, promises of seeing each other soon, and more pictures, more proof she'd been lying to my face all along. My mind went cold. I'd always known she was capable of it, but seeing it laid out in black and white was different. It was like a punch to the gut, knocking the wind out of me. I closed the laptop, my hands trembling. I knew then I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I had to do something, but I wasn't just going to confront her. I wanted to make her pay. I needed a plan that would hit her where it hurt, but in a way she'd never see coming. I wasn't interested in making her look bad in front of everyone or ruining her reputation. That wasn't my style. No, I wanted her to feel what I felt, that crushing sense of betrayal, the humiliation of being so thoroughly played. I set up a small bait, something to lure her out. I started leaving her little notes around the house, cryptic but suggestive. "You think I don't know?" Or "It's over sooner than you think." I left them in her makeup bag, in her purse, even in her favorite book. I wanted her to know I was onto her, that I wasn't going to take this lying down. And then I sent a message to Mark. I played cool, friendly enough to make him think I didn't know, but with enough edge that he'd realize I was aware of everything. Just a simple "we need to talk," sent through an anonymous email. I knew it would rattle him, make him sweat. That was part of the plan. The night I waited for her in the dark, I felt every nerve in my body buzzing. I knew she was coming home soon. When she finally stepped inside, the lights flicked on. "Lisa," I said, voice cold enough to freeze water, "we need to talk." Her eyes widened just a bit, and I saw that flicker of panic I'd been waiting for. She tried to play innocent, acting like she had no idea what I was talking about. "What are you talking about?" she asked, voice shaky. I just held out my phone, showing her the messages, the emails, the receipts. Her face drained of color. Her lips trembled as she tried to come up with some excuse, but I wasn't buying it anymore. That's when I realized I was done. Done pretending, done playing nice. I told her I knew everything, that I'd caught her, and I wanted her to understand how much she'd hurt me. Her face crumpled and she started crying, but I didn't feel anything but cold satisfaction, because I knew this was just the beginning. The guilt and shame hit her like a tidal wave. She sank onto the couch, clutching her face, trying to hide her tears. But I wasn't about to let her off that easy, not after what she'd done. I kept my voice steady, but every word felt like a knife twisting in my gut. "You lied to me," I said. My fists clenched. "You hid all of this, and I gave you my trust, Lisa. I thought we were building a life, something real, but you were already planning to throw it all away with him." She looked up then, eyes red and puffy, trembling. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," she whispered. "It was a mistake. I swear I never wanted to hurt you." "Stop." I cut her off, voice sharp. "You don't get to say you're sorry now. You should have thought about that before you cheated. You think you're the only one feeling hurt." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Because I've got plans, big ones. You're not going to walk away from this without consequences." She looked at me like I was speaking a different language, like she had no idea what I was planning. And honestly, that made my blood boil even more. I'd kept my fury simmering, waiting for the right moment. Now was it. I told her about the plan I'd crafted. It was simple but cruel in a way she'd never see coming. I was going to make Mark think I was oblivious, keep him hanging on the hope that I'd never find out. Meanwhile, I'd turn the tables on her. "You think you're clever, hiding behind your lies," I said, "but I've got something coming for both of you." I pulled out my phone, showed her the evidence, and then I revealed my secret weapon, an audio recording I made during one of her late-night phone calls with Mark. It was enough to shatter her if she ever heard it. Her eyes widened in horror, and she tried to snatch the phone from me. "No, don't, please just listen." "No," I said coldly. "You've already lied enough. You want to tell me it was just a mistake, fine, but I'm about to make damn sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are." The next step was to send the recording to Mark's wife. If he was married, I hadn't checked, but I figured it didn't matter anymore. I wanted to destroy their little secret, make sure they knew I wasn't going to let this slide. I'd have her humiliated, broken, and finally understand the depth of what she'd lost. I could feel my jaw tighten. "You're going to regret ever crossing me," I told her. "And you're going to wish you never lied about us, because I'm about to make sure the world knows what kind of woman you really are." Her cry was quiet now, the kind that leaves you feeling hollow. I left her sitting there, trembling as I went to get my plan in motion. My hands were steady, but I felt a strange mix of adrenaline and cold rage. I knew I'd gone too far. Maybe I shouldn't have done this, but what she did to me, that was unforgivable. I'd spent days plotting, waiting for the right moment. Now that it was here, I had to execute it perfectly. I took a deep breath, then reached for my phone again. Time to send the evidence. Time to make her pay. And as I walked out of the house, I felt a strange sense of relief, like I was finally taking back what was mine. Because if she thought she could cheat and lie without consequences, she had another thing coming. The moment I pressed send, an odd calm settled over me, like I'd finally shifted into a different gear. The evidence was out there now, locked in the digital world beyond her reach. I made sure to send it anonymously so she wouldn't know where it came from until it was too late. That way she'd be blindsided, caught in the act of her own lies with no way to hide from the fallout. I sat on the porch for a while, listening to the quiet hum of the night. My mind replayed everything, her trembling face, the way her voice cracked when she begged me not to listen, the sickening realization that I'd been so blind. Honestly, I'd never felt so empty yet strangely alive. I'd finally taken control after months of feeling powerless. The next morning, her phone buzzed like crazy. I caught her trying to ignore it, but I just handed her a glass of water and watched her squirm. "That's your phone," I said, voice low and steady. "Go ahead, see who's blowing up your inbox." She snatched it up, her hands trembling. I watched her eyes widen when she saw the incoming messages, screenshots of the texts, the recordings, everything I'd set in motion. Her face went pale, then red with fury, then shame. She looked at me like I'd betrayed her, but I just shrugged. She brought this on herself. "I told you," I said softly. "You lied, you cheated, now everyone's going to know." Her voice cracked as she tried to protest. "You're overreacting, it's not what it looks like." "Oh, it's exactly what it looks like," I cut her off. "And I don't care what you say anymore. Your history, Lisa. I don't want anything to do with you." I couldn't help the bitterness that slipped into my voice. "You lost me the moment I found out. You threw everything away for a stupid fling." She burst into tears then, clutching her head. "Please, just listen, please, don't do this." Her voice was almost begging, but I'd heard enough. I stood up and looked down at her, feeling that strange mixture of anger and relief. "Goodbye, Lisa," I said, grabbing my keys. "The house is yours now. I'll be taking my things." As I moved toward the door, I felt a weight lift. For the first time in days, I could breathe easier. Walking out was like shedding a heavy coat I'd been wearing for months. I knew. She tried to call or message, but I was done. Her apologies, her tears, they didn't mean anything to me anymore. I'd gotten what I wanted, a clean break, a chance to start over without her lies poisoning everything. Before I left, I dropped the keys on the table. I looked back once, saying, "Don't bother trying to fix this, you can't. You chose him over us, and now you get to live with it." The door clicked shut behind me, and I stepped into the fresh air, cold but clear. That's when I realized I'd never be naive again, not after this. Trust was gone, replaced by caution, but I was finally free. Free from her, free from the chaos, free from the lies, and the weirdest part, I felt a strange sense of peace. The kind that comes after a storm, because I knew that I'd made her pay in a way she'd never see coming. The price of betrayal was heavy, but I'd paid it, and I was done. The days that followed were a blur of clarity and quiet reflection. I didn't reach out or try to explain myself. Honestly, I didn't feel the need. She'd already shown me what she was capable of: dishonesty, betrayal, a complete disregard for what we'd built. That kind of damage doesn't just heal overnight. I knew I'd need time to really process it, to rebuild from the wreckage she'd left behind. But I wasn't just going to sit still and stew. No, I had a plan. A final move that would cement everything, make sure she understood she'd lost more than just a fiancé, that her actions had consequences. I wasn't interested in revenge for revenge's sake. I just wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, exactly how I felt those long, sleepless nights. I contacted a lawyer, not because I wanted to fight for anything material, more because I needed to make sure she couldn't come back and claim some kind of false apology or try to manipulate her way into my life again. I filed for divorce. Simple, clean, and permanent. I wanted her out of my life for good. No messy fights, no drawn-out battles, just a clear boundary cut sharply and cleanly. While waiting for the paperwork to go through, I started reaching out to friends and family. Not to vent or to seek sympathy. They'd seen the signs. But I'd ignored them. No, I told them the truth, more or less, and asked for their support. The reactions were mixed. Some shook their heads, others said I'd dodged a bullet. I didn't care what anyone else thought. I knew I'd done the right thing for myself. In the meantime, I deleted her number, blocked her on every platform, and took her off everything. It was like ripping off a bandage, painful at first but necessary. Every time I saw her name or her face pop up, I felt that familiar pang of betrayal, but I'd learned to let it go. I wasn't going to carry her betrayal around anymore. That chapter was closed. One evening I sat at my desk going over everything, the evidence, the steps I'd taken, the way I'd finally reclaimed my dignity. I realized I'd been holding on to so much anger, so much pain, but now it was different. I felt lighter, stronger. I knew I'd get through this, even if it took time. I remembered her crying on the couch that night, begging me not to ruin her life. I'd looked at her and thought, no, Lisa, you're the one who ruined it first. I did. Do this to destroy her, I did it to protect myself. To make her see that you can't just betray someone and expect everything to stay the same. That's when I knew I'd finally taken control. I finally decided to move on. I found a new apartment, a fresh start. Nothing fancy, just a place where I could breathe, think, and rebuild from the ground up. I started focusing on myself, going to the gym, reconnecting with old friends, doing things that made me feel alive again. And slowly but surely I was healing. Looking back now, I see how this all played out. I see the red flags I ignored, the signs I missed. But I also see the strength I found in myself to end it all on my own terms. I don't regret the pain or the anger. Those feelings push me to act. What I regret is giving her so much of myself in the first place. I guess my advice in all this: trust your gut. When something feels wrong, don't ignore it. Because sometimes the truth is hiding behind a smile, and the cost of ignoring it can be way higher than you think. Be honest with yourself, stand strong, and never let anyone make you feel like you're the one in the wrong for protecting your own peace. When I finally handed over the keys to that empty house, I realized I'd taken back control. And that, more than anything, was my real victory. I remember walking out of the house for the last time, keys in hand, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The air was crisp, and the morning sun cast long shadows over the driveway. It was almost poetic. The house that held our hopes, our plans, and her lies now belonged to the past. I dropped the keys into the mailbox, watching them settle at the bottom with a finality I hadn't felt in a long time. That act was symbolic. I was closing that chapter, sealing it shut. I'd cut all ties, swept away the memories, and started anew. I knew she'd try to reach out, maybe with apologies, maybe with promises to fix things. But I was done. I'd learned the hard way that some betrayals leave scars that don't easily heal, and some damage is better left behind. As I stepped away from the house, I took a long, deep breath. The cool air filled my lungs, and I allowed myself a moment to just be present in that silence. No more lies, no more betrayals, no more pretending. Just the honest truth that I was finally free. In the days that followed, I focused on rebuilding myself, physically, emotionally, mentally. I threw myself into work, found new hobbies, and spent time with the people who truly cared. The pain slowly dulled into a distant ache, replaced by a cautious optimism I hadn't felt in years. The betrayal had nearly broken me, but I was still standing, stronger. Looking back, I see now that I was blinded by love, trusting blindly and ignoring the warning signs. I see the moments I brushed off my gut instinct, convincing myself I was overthinking. But I also see something else, my own resilience. I saw how I refused to let her define me, how I took control of my life, piece by piece, until I found my footing again. The most important lesson I learned through all this: never ignore the red flags. Don't dismiss the gut feeling that screams something's wrong. And above all, never stay in a situation where your trust is shattered and your boundaries are crossed. It's painful to walk away from someone you love, but sometimes it's the only way to save yourself. So if you're ever in a similar spot, remember this: your worth isn't determined by someone else's lies. Trust yourself, hold on to your dignity, and don't be afraid to walk away. Pain fades, but the lessons stay. And one day you'll look back and realize that even in betrayal, you found your strength. I handed over the keys to my old life, and with them I closed the door on betrayal and lies. Now I'm building something better, something honest, something real. And that's all I ever wanted.